you'll find the time just slides by. You'll have nothing to show for it, and you get weaker. Every day that slides by like this, every day that you're hiding from your life, you get weaker. You get a lot weaker. It's not that you're marshaling your strength or any bullshit that you might say to yourself that you're doing. You're not doing that. You know that. I know that. We all know that. You're not marshaling any fucking strength. You're just getting weaker, softer, pudgier, fatter, more pathetic. And the only way to turn it around is to walk out the door. Tell me if this doesn't sound familiar. You find your day sliding by and you're playing 10, 12, 14 hours a day on video games, right? Or you're watching movies endlessly. You're watching, seasons 1, 2, and 3 of House. You've seen it fucking before, but you're watching it again instead of studying. Or you're jerking off like 5, 10 times a day maybe, instead of finding yourself a woman, right? Or maybe you find yourself like building like little model airplanes or tanks or some shit like that, or some other quote-unquote pastime, some other quote-unquote hobby, right? But instead of spending an hour or two, you spend 6, 8, 10, 12 hours in this stupid hobby that's sort of pointless, instead of going out there and getting a job, right? Does this sound familiar? Does this sound like something that you might have experienced? See, what you're doing in such situations is that you're hiding from your life. Or more properly, you're hiding from the problems of your life. You're failing to deal with these problems, and it's a peculiar situation because it doesn't happen to poor people. It happens to well-off people or people who are good enough, because you see, poor people in really backward circumstances or dire circumstances, right? Their situation is such that they need to do something in order to survive, right? They can't just hide away from their life. No, that's a privilege, a prerogative of people, young men, who are in circumstances that are just good enough. They're kind of miserable, but they're good enough. They have food and shelter. And so they eke out this existence, perhaps in their mother's basement. And it's not dire enough to motivate them to change. You see? Now, this happens often as not in, middle-class upbringings or better, and it happens a lot with single mothers. Sure, because the single mother feels sorry for the kid, feels sorry for her son, and she loves him, of course, which is perfectly natural. And so she doesn't do anything except give him comfort. And what does he do? He takes advantage of the situation. Not deliberately, but he sort of does. And he winds up just living in his mother's basement and not doing anything. Just hiding away from life, postponing life. And the days and the weeks and the months and then the years start to tick on by, and he's got nothing to show for it. Yeah. This doesn't happen with fathers, when fathers are in the picture, or fathers who at least act like fucking fathers, right? Because a lot of these cucked out quote-unquote dads, right, they are, for all intents and purposes, gelded, and so they don't push the son out of the house. They don't push him. So it's, for all intents and purposes, as if he had two mothers. Two mothers who are babying him, coddling him, right? And so the guy, the young man, is hiding from his life and not fixing the problems of his life. See, because if he were shoved out of the nest, if just given a good strong shove and the door slammed in his face, right? What would the guy do? Well, he'd curse his parents, of course, for a little bit, and then turn around and try to do something, make something of his situation, get out of the hole that he's in, start to confront the problems of his life. You see what I mean? See, because desperation is a great motivator. When you don't know where you're going to live, you don't know when you're going to eat, when you're just flat broke and just trying to eke out an existence to survive. And paradoxically, it turns out that when you're in such a dire situation, it's among the best times of your life. I speak from experience. Let me tell you. See, I've been in both situations. I've been in a situation where my mother coddled me. This happened after the second time I got kicked out of college. I was 19. I wasn't doing anything. I was just goofing off, watching TV, reading a whole shit ton of books, and just wasting my days. And this lasted, I don't know, 6 months, until finally my mother said, well, look, if you're just going to be a bum, you might as well just be working, right? And eventually I got a job as an English teacher. I talked about it in another video, but the point was, see, when I went to college for real, serious, I was really serious and very motivated to go to college. I went to Dartmouth. And as I talked about in a previous video, you can find it right here, I got suspended very unfairly for allegations of sexual assault, and very serious allegations, although, you know, the actual core of the allegations were kind of ridiculous because I was accused of trying to forcibly kiss somebody. Trying but failing, okay? It was just absurd. It was just basically a jealous girl. A girl that I'd hooked up with and then I'd sort of like dropped unceremoniously, and she got jealous and pissed off, and I got slammed with this shit. And so I got suspended from Dartmouth. And I had no place to go. I was living in the United States for the first time in like 9 years. The rest of my family was back in Chile. I didn't have much money. I didn't know anybody in the United States. No place I could go to. You know, I'd gone straight from Chile to Dartmouth. And here I was suspended from Dartmouth for a full academic year, 3 consecutive terms. And I didn't know where to go, what to do, you know. I had nothing, no home to go to. And because of this situation, I discovered, frankly, a resourcefulness that I'd never realized that I possessed. Or perhaps it's more accurate to say that it's a resourcefulness that grew and developed because of my desperation. Because I had no place to go, no home to go back to. And so and no job. And so I talked my way into a job in a Washington, D.C. law firm. I remember I was like, you know, in a public phone booth. And this was, remember, this was 91. This was way before email was prevalent and you know, cell phones. Forget about that. That was science fiction. That was just Dick Tracy, right? I'm in a public telephone. I've got the stack of quarters, and I'm doing an on-telephone interview with this only job prospect that I'd gotten back any kind of message from, right? And I'm calling her and talking to this woman, and I remember very clearly plugging quarters, and I'm running out of quarters, and I'm trying to convince this woman to hire me, right? And I did, you know? I mean, I sweet-talked her and just, you know, said the right things, whatever the fuck I said, it worked, and I got the job. And so once I had the job in DC, I went about trying to figure out where I was going to live. And I wound up talking to this alum, this Dartmouth alum, Barry Sullivan, class of 36. I miss him dearly. He was a lovely man. And he had this big house. He was a widower, and he had a big house. And he didn't mind having Dartmouth kids over for a term or two while they did whatever they were doing in Washington, right? And yeah, I talked to the guy, and yeah, I charmed him and went down to DC and lived there. And it was extraordinary because I was able to achieve all of this with literally no money. I didn't have any money. I was flat broke because I'd spent all my money on my new computer. And I was flat broke. I didn't have anything. I didn't have any place to go. And yet I was able to talk my way into a job, a decent job, and talk my way into a place to live, a very lovely place. And some months later, as Barry and I got to know each other a lot better, he was lovely, lovely gentleman. And like I said, just aces, right? And he said to me later, I mean, when he realized how desperate my situation had been, he said, you came across as just smooth as silk, like everything was hunky-dory, you know? And that was something that grew out of desperation. It was only my desperation that made me discover these qualities in myself, right? These moments, retrospectively, these times in your life when you're totally desperate, retrospectively, they become the defining moments of your life. I'm telling you this experience that happened to me, but similar experiences have happened to other men that I've known, men that I respect. And most all of them have gone through these periods of just being, completely out of the nest, with no help, no place to fall back to, and just going hand to mouth and just trying to survive. Day to day, sometimes hour to hour, second to second. And retrospectively, that desperation makes them confident. Being able to survive the dire straits that they're in, it gives them a confidence that they can make it. See what I'm saying? But to not get pushed out, as happens to so many young men, so many of these NEETs living in their mother's basement, to not get pushed out leads to depression, leads to misery. You're just stewing there in limbo. And you're hiding from your life, you're failing to deal with the problems that you have in your life, and you're just allowing the time to slide by, for your life to slide by. And you fall into depression, or you start falling into these bizarre and decadent ideations, sexual ideas and sexual proclivities that are just disgusting, because sort of like you have no normalcy with which to compare, and you just spiral down into your own, sexual perversions, quite frankly. Perversions that are quite natural in everybody, but very few people wind up actually diving into them and perhaps indulging in them, okay? Or you start spiraling into these ideations of suicide. Or worse, because suicide is bad enough, you're harming yourself, but perhaps ideations of revenge and murder even, which is, worse than self-harm because it's harming other people, innocent people, right? And that's what happens. It happens all the time. We've seen it on the news as of late. Some kids, some guy, the strangler, the Chatelet strangler, whatever the fuck, right? What do you think happened there? Yeah. Now, the worst part of hiding from your life, from my point of view, as a man of 50, I can say that the worst part is the time lost with nothing to show for it. You've spent so much time just stewing, just in limbo, just jerking off and watching video games and not doing anything. And all of a sudden you see all of this time has slid behind you, and there's nothing there. You have nothing to show for all of this time. That's the worst part, because as you get older, you will realize that the thing you have that is most precious is time. It's your most precious resource. And you say quite casually, oh, I'm going to kill some time, I'm going to kill a day or a week or a month or even a year. And when you get to my point of view, as a man of 50, you realize you do not have the time to kill. Time is so valuable. And to hide from your life, to sort of like be in the little shell, to be in a little cocoon of middling comfort, and just to sort of like be like with your fingers in your ears and your eyes closed and just like going, like making noises as if to ignore everything going on. And the time just passes by. That's the worst. That's the thing you'll regret the most. And the solution to this problem is quite obvious. You have to just walk out the door. Especially if you don't have any money or anything like that, and especially if you have somebody who is happy to support you indefinitely. You have to turn your back on that person and walk away. You have to go out the door and never come back, because you'll find the time just slides by. You'll have nothing to show for it, and you get weaker every day that slides by like this. Every day that you're hiding from your life, you get weaker. You get a lot weaker. It's not that you're marshaling your strength or any bullshit that you might say to yourself that you're doing. You're not doing that. You know that. I know that. We all know that. You're not marshaling any fucking strength. You're just getting weaker, softer, pudgier, fatter, more pathetic. And the only way to turn it around is to walk out the door. And you don't have to pack up a whole shitload of your shit. You don't have to get together like a pile of money. You don't need any of that shit. You have to just put on your clothes, a warm jacket in case you have to sleep out at night and have no place to go, and then just fucking go. Fuck your shit, fuck your money. You don't need any of that. The desperation will keep you warm. And you have to do it. Because the fact of the matter is, if you don't do it, you'll go insane. And it's not going to be like a sexy insanity, like a cool insanity, right? No. You know what most insanity looks like? Have you ever gone to like a mental institution or something like that? You know, most crazy people, most insane people, they're just blanked out. They're like fucking zombies, but not zombies like in the movies that they're chasing to eat somebody's brains or some shit like that. They're just sitting there, staring at nothing. That's what you're doing when you're hiding from your life. You're pretending to be a zombie. You're pretending to be a mental patient. You're pretending to be a zero. But see, you pretend long enough to be something and you eventually become that thing. Don't be that thing. And it's hard, it's so fucking hard to break away from a comfort, or even if it's not a comfort, even if it's kind of like humiliating and just unpleasant and just like a grind, right? But it's a grind that is not bad enough. And that's why you're stuck in it. That's why you're stewing in it. That's why you're in this limbo. Well, what you have to do, and take it from me, I know wherever I speak, you got to break away and walk away. And the desperation that you'll feel, yeah, it's not going to be nice. It's not going to be pleasant. But you'll get over it, and you'll recover, and you'll start to build something of your own. And in a while, you'll look back on those periods of desperation, and you'll think that they were good. And you'll realize that living like that, just going on and taking your licks, it's not merely that you'll be a better man because of it. It's because you'll stave off that insanity that is hiding from your life.